So, soul laws and karma. Very important to understand that karmic law, again, as I've said in a previous video, karmic law has to do with the simple fact that there's a universal law of cause and effect that governs everything in this reality, in this universe. Okay, karma is universal and there is no way around it. Cause and effect. And the law of cause and effect concerns and applies to all phenomena, but also everything that has to do with psychic or psychical law, and also everything that has to do with soul law. It's the basic law of all. Now, when I mentioned that there were two laws concerning the reality of what the soul is, namely to love and aspire towards the summit of your being, so love your Father in heaven with all your strength, so which means aspire towards the summit of your being with all your strength, and loving your brother as thyself. This is the start of how karma manifests, in the sense that doing this will imply something, and not doing this or going against that will imply the opposite of that. So for soul expansion, soul progress, soul evolution, increase of light overall, is the result of the inner realization of what's meant by these two laws. And the opposite of that, what we call basically evil, or some kind of direction towards what we call evil, because there are various degrees to that, is doing the opposite of that. So it's important to realize that true human progress has to do with these two laws. You see, the law of evolution in the animal kingdom is something very different. It's what has been called survival of the fittest, or the emergence of species following natural selection. So survival of the fittest. This is good and this is true for animals. It's not good at all for humans. For humans, our law is a soul law. It's not a physical body law, because survival of the fittest has to do with body adaptability to environment. For humans, it cannot be that. It cannot be survival of the fittest. It has to be love thy brother as thyself. If humans, instead of applying these laws, apply the law of survival of the fittest to the reality, the result is going to be savagery, war, overall violence, stuff like that. And this has to do with, and should have to do only with, the past, and we hope the distant past of humanity. Of course, there is still violence in this world. There is still people who want to progress by crushing others. And curiously enough, survival of the fittest now in our, actual civilization is applied to capitalism, basically. Capitalism is a survival of the fittest, and I'm not saying capitalism is bad, but there is something to be said about why animal law and the law that in our ignorance and unconsciousness we've been applying to ourselves in the distant savage past of mankind now is applied to the world of business, but is very, very bad if we base our relationships between each other on that. But it's okay if it only concerns the business world. It's a curious observation, and I'm not saying it's not okay. It might be, but it's not going to be like that forever, that's for sure. And I am not here to suggest that some form of communism would be better. It wouldn't. So, food for thought. I'm not going to develop further on that subject now, because I wanted this video to be more about soul laws. So, if in our ignorance and unconsciousness we base our relations between each other on animal law, it's going to be the end of this civilization very soon, very quickly. War, savagery, and all the rest of it. Progress, human progress, depends on realizing that We must obey soul law, meaning your soul is like mine, my brother is like myself. Our souls are not different. Our souls are basically brothers. So, on a planetary scale, there is still a lot of progress that can be done in this area for sure. And there are some religions in this world, some philosophies, that do not consider that to be true. You know, there are some who view the other people, the other religion, the other ethnic group, the other nation as being enemies, as being less than, as being not our brothers, basically. A word of warning. Soul laws are not a matter of choice. There are laws. Whether you believe in them or not, whether you obey them or not, laws applies, and karma follows how the law is followed or broken. Doesn't matter if in the past a people have wronged your ancestors in any way. What they have done or not done, karma has applied and still applies. But today, what do? Do you get in line with soul law, which is the law of your inner being? Don't forget, it's not someone else's law. It's not some other god's law. It's a law that has to do with the nature of your very soul. So today, regardless of what has happened in the past, are you, or are we, getting more and more and more in line with that law? If the choice we make is more hate, more trying to conquer or destroy the other people, or if our religion dictates to us that we ought to conquer some other people, we ought to forcibly convert them to our religion, we are to treat them as less than if they don't convert to our religion, I'm afraid to say, you're breaking the law, and karma will follow. Necessarily. There's no way around it. It might not follow right away, but it will follow someday. Someday. Perhaps in this life, perhaps in a future life or incarnation. You can guess, and perhaps you would be right, perhaps not, but perhaps. If you look at the situation of any particular person, or a particular population, a particular group of souls, you can guess just how far some have strayed from that law in previous lives. Being born in a place where there is just misery, where there's basically just violence, slavery, abuse, extreme poverty all around. What was the previous path of these souls? Why are they there? Why is this allowed? Nothing happens in a vacuum. Nothing. Therefore, everything is the result of karma, meaning cause and effect. So a whole situation where we notice a huge population in a state of slavery or misery or oppression or occupation or anything like that, there is always a number or a bunch of cause and effect relations, multi-directional cause and effect relations that have led to that, because nothing happens in a vacuum. Karma is universal. Now this is simply the path that some souls were on and has led them there. Doesn't mean we ought not to help them. Our duty as humans is to treat our brothers like ourselves. Therefore, our duty in a sense is to do what we can to uplift them. But the reason why they're there has to do with karma again. In situations where we find a lot of evil oppressing or causing a lot of suffering, evil forces causing a lot of suffering to other humans, usually, and I dare say all the time, if you stray away from one of these two laws, you fall under a different set of spiritual authorities. If you are living a very highly spiritual life, then the spiritual authority under which you are living and through which you are evolving will be something divine, something enlightened. But if you stray away from that by ignoring or by disobeying or by being simply an enemy of these two laws as thought by Christ, then your existence falls necessarily under the powers of different authorities. Not those authorities that have to do with the nature of your inner being, the soul nature of your inner being, the divine nature of your very being. You fall under authorities that have nothing to do with your inner being's nature, which is why it results in suffering. You are far away from your own inner nature. You know, there are multiple grades of spiritual authorities. Multiple. And some are very anti-human. This may surprise you, but this is true. People worship lower forms of spiritual entities are taking a lot of risk when they're doing that. There are people who worship, for example, Satan. And I mean, who do it for real. I don't mean those who just take Satan as a symbol of some form of atheism. That's different. But if in someone's enormous stupidity you worship something that's analogous to the devil or something, you are basically investing in that which is foreign to your inner nature, whether you know it or not. And this will result in increased suffering sooner or later, because you are, in a sense, choking your inner nature. You're calling to yourself powers that will strangle your inner nature, that will limit it, you're calling upon forces that will expand at your expense. And later on, freeing yourself from this will probably be extremely difficult and probably very, very, very long. And the length of time it will perhaps take to free yourself from such influences, it's going to probably spend a lot of lifetimes or incarnations. It depends. For a little bit of material benefit, are you almost literally selling your soul? Be careful, magicians. Be careful.